Welcome to another episode of Pathetic, the podcast. We're happy to be coming to you again. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Ted Daniels. I'm one of your co-hosts. We also have Mikey C. Mikey, how are you?
Doing great. We had a great time last night down in Newtown, PA at a comedy show. Teddy was the opener and the host. Great day, great start off to my 40th year on the planet. So excited to get started here. Geoff, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. First of all, Mike, happy belated birthday to you, my brother, and
Thank
Uncle
you.
Teddy. Your birthday's coming up too, so happy
tomorrow.
birthday to both. Good, man. Happy birthday to both you guys. And listen, the weather is beautiful down here in the Carolinas. Nice 61 and sunny. So we got the draft coming up. We have baseball. So great time of the year.
Yeah, Mikey, speaking of that, last night we really did have a fun time. It was Rich Voss, who is a legend in the industry, and I got to open for him, which was really a lot of fun. But this show was put together by the person who is our new producer, James DeBenedetto from the Comedy Shop, and he runs shows all throughout the South Carolina, Myrtle Beach area, Charleston, upstate in South Carolina, also in Pennsylvania, like this show was. But listen, I'm going to just tell everybody, if you're listening and you're part of an organization that needs to, raise money for whatever it is, and you're tired of standing in front of a ShopRite, shaking a can in the rain, getting 25 cents from some guy who gives you like a bad look, call James, reach out, jjcomedy.com, and he'll take care of it. They'll run a comedy show. You'll make a lot of money and it'll be fun. jjcomedy.com. So yeah, we're looking forward to having James be our producer and put some stuff together for us. And I think with this show, I think we're gonna have some really good stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to it. Did I just give you the Adam Gaze eyes? Did I just go?
The crazy eyes.
The crazy eyes.
Yeah.
One
One of the all-time best press conferences, by the way. Just based on you don't even have to listen to the words. Just watch it on mute, and it's even better than having the words. He was like the mad scientist.
It was funny because when they introduced him, I think Mike and I both kind of right after the press conference just went, "Oh, come on, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
I don't know what was worse. Was it the Adam Gase eyes press conference or the Ben McAdoo 10 sizes too large suit that he was wearing? And the guy could barely walk. He could have jumped out of a plane and parachuted. It was unbelievable. I'll never forget that.
He was paying an homage to Tom Cruise in Big. But spring training we're right in the very beginning of spring training. Games have started to be played. I'm not going to lie. I am so excited watching Juan Soto. He's already hit 2 home runs. The team around him, when they play the starting lineup, looks really good with him in the lineup. Pitching is going to be whatever it is, but we've had a couple of rookies step up this week. But Mike, you got some disturbing news this week with the Yankees. What was up with that?
So, yeah, I mean, we have a few guys. Half our pitching staff is now back in New York going to get MRIs. You have Luis Heel now on top of that. So that one is more concerning because he's already had surgery done and all that. So he's missed a bunch of time. And you have Rodon also with some issues. So, it's definitely concerning when you get started here in the, especially with, it being so early in spring training. Hopefully these MRIs come back relatively clean and they may miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the season. But, in terms of getting started, I mean, this is the typical spring training thing where as soon as anybody has any sort of twinge or anything else, ship them back to New York, get the MRI. So luckily they have a lot of depth when it comes to pitching. So they have a couple of guys who can help out with that. But I am a little bit concerned, obviously. Hopefully, again, knock on wood, that James Andrews does not get a call from any of these guys. So if that's the case, they miss a couple of weeks, it shouldn't be too bad. I'd rather do it at the beginning of the season than have them ready for the end of the season when we're going to need them. So,
and Geoff, you actually said last week on the show about Lewis Heel.
Yeah.
You were looking for a big year, right?
I was expecting a big year, to be honest. I've always been high on Heel. Even when he first came into the league, there was something about his attitude on the mound too that
Yeah.
seemed like a veteran. If you watch a lot of these first-time pitchers and these rookies, they seem, you look at their body language, they look nervous. They're bouncing all over the place, they're sweating. He had that locked-in look, like the Andy Pettitte look since day one. And, this is just typical spring training stuff, right? This is happening all around the league for the most part. It just seems a lot worse when it's happening to your team. So I'm definitely, Mike, I share your sentiment. I'm definitely concerned. I mean, you're always concerned about an injury. But I still think the Yankees will be fine. My real biggest concern is the left side of the field. Right now, third base and left field, that's a serious problem for the Yankees. Jason Dominguez, for example, he looks completely lost in left field.
Yeah.
He doesn't look bad. He looks like he has absolutely no idea what the heck he's doing. And, the problem is, guys, I don't know how much that's going to change within a month before the season starts. And then you couple that with the fact that, this guy might be the leadoff hitter too. So it's a lot for him to handle in essentially his first year, his first full year, hopefully, as a Yankee. So, and I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that Dominguez won't be a good player. I still think he'll be good. But it's just very concerning watching that. And you wonder, how much of a liability is he? And his hitting in the small sample size that we've seen, it doesn't compensate for the defensive mess. So
Right.
I just don't know what they can possibly do, and they have to address it. And I have something kind of crazy, Mike. I don't know if you're going to want to punch me through the screen if I say this, but I would give Alex Verdugo a call. I'm not a fan of him. I don't think he's very good, but he's rock solid defensively.
correct.
And how many times throughout the year have you seen outfield blunders lose games for the Yankees, for the Mets? It happens every
everybody.
week, right?
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be addressed. But listen, I think we're just going through the usual spring training stuff, and hopefully we get out of it.
Yeah, and left field in that division is very challenging. You have the Green Monster, you have Yankee Stadium with the short porch and the really deep part of the field.
Yep.
You have Baltimore. They've done a lot with that left field at Camden Yards. So left field, you have to have someone in there who actually can play defense. So
Correct.
I'm with you with Verdugo. I loved him as a defensive replacement last year. He gets a couple of clutch hits. What's nice is if Stanton misses any sort of time with these injuries, you can always slate Dominguez as a DH for the time being.
Mhm.
Maybe only play him in the field 1 or 2 days a week when Judge needs a day at DH or one of the other guys needs a day off or a half day off at DH. So I agree. I think you need somebody there who knows how to play the outfield, even if the bat's not there, because someone's always going to be hurt. Where you can always slide him into DH if you want to really give him some at bats and let him play as much as he can out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I want to address that jersey you're wearing. Okay. Mike is a New York Rangers fan.
Correct.
Okay? But like myself, I have other jerseys, ones that I deem as being pretty cool. Mike, show everybody, if you could stand just for a second. Say,
Yep.
There you go. So that's the Islanders. I think they only used that for a year or two.
Correct. 1996 and 1997, I believe. They realized halfway through that they were getting destroyed because it looked like the Gorton's Fishermen. So they took their old logo and just put it on this jersey for a year before they could actually go and switch back to their traditional colors. So,
Mike, tell everyone, why are you wearing that today?
So I am going to tonight the Bridgeport Islanders, who are actually wearing this logo now as part of their jerseys. They're playing the Lehigh Valley Phantoms tonight by my house in Allentown. So we're going to the game tonight, and it's a perfect excuse to break this jersey out and play it. I won it on eBay about 6 years ago and love it. And anytime I can take this thing out and wear it, always gets compliments anytime I wear it out.
The best jerseys are the ones you rarely see.
Yes.
right? Even
Yes.
if they're not like the nicest looking jerseys, when you don't see them often and then they resurface, whether it's you wear it or you watch it in the game, it's just something about the the scarcity of wearing those jerseys that makes it even a cooler jersey.
You know what we should do? We should have on different episodes best hockey jerseys, best. Well, hockey is probably the one that really where you can separate them. But I was going to say best football helmets.
Mm-hmm.
So hockey jerseys, football helmets,
Yeah,
and then we'll do MLB logos.
I like it.
We'll do we'll set up so your homework for this week. Let's do next week. Let's do football helmets next week. Okay.
Cool. I like it.
We'll put that together. But the other thing was, I did a show last week and I worked with Chris Roach, a comedian who was actually on that show, Kevin Kim Wait. And he's a big Ranger fan, Mike. And we were talking about stuff, and we were talking about some of the older players. I want to ask you guys a question. I don't care what sport it is. Was there a player that you absolutely hated, but he was really good, but you hated, and now that player is not playing, have you kind of gone back and said, wow, he really was a great player, and I how did I hate him so much? Mikey, who would you? Anybody? I hate to put you on the spot right away, but I'm going to let Geoff think a little bit. But what do you think, Mike?
I mean, there's a couple that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to even bring him up because of my diehard Yankee fandom, but when you see him afterward and you see how he is as a person, you can't help but love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say David Ortiz.
That was mine.
As a guy who is
100%.
Couldn't stand him in that red jersey, and seeing him come up at bat just gave you agita every single time he was up in the late innings. But you see how he is after he is done playing. You got to love the guy now that he's not beating you and being a pain in the ass in the playoffs. So
that's a good one.
I mean, listen, there's a bunch of them. This was actually a pretty easy question when you take about 10 seconds to think about. I mean, Manny Ramirez, Pedroia used to always kill us. Jonathan Papelbon, like these guys. I go down the list of players that, as I watch them play as a Yankee fan or a Giants fan, Deshaun Jackson comes to mind. First one that comes to mind. I hated watching them, but then you look back and see how they played. You're like, damn, I wish I had that guy on my team.
Yeah.
So I always talk about it, man. Like, it's not real hate, it's sports hate. I don't hate them as, well, I guess some I hate as people, but depending on what they did off the field. But just someone like Manny, right? Or Big Papi, like, you just, how do you not respect them? Even when you're watching them, they were just unbelievable players. And I think that's the essence of sports, man. Like, think about Derek Jeter, what the Red Sox did for him. For years, for his entire career, every Red Sox fan hated Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Booed him, throwing stuff at the bus because they knew he was on it. And when Derek Jeter had his retirement tour, what did they do? They gave him a plaque, or, I forget the exact gift, but they gave him a gift, and the fans gave him a standing ovation. Right. So I think every team and every fan base has a select amount of players that you hated when they beat your team, but you had to respect them. How about you, Uncle Ted?
Well, first of all, I want to address you just said every fan base, with the exception of Philadelphia, because I think those fans are just animals and should not have sports franchises.
That is a good point.
For me, honestly, it was Wayne Gretzky. And the reason I hated him, growing up, I was an Islanders fan. And when the Islanders won 4 cups in a row, the last cup they won was against Edmonton. And I mean, Gretzky did more crying about getting hit, getting pushed, and you couldn't touch him and all this stuff. And then the next year they changed the format of the playoffs, which was a big advantage for the Edmonton Oilers because of the way they were slotted. It went from 2-2-1-1-1 to 2-3-2. And But now that he's retired, and you look back, and I look back at videos and look at his stats and all, he truly was the greatest player to lace on skates. To me, he truly, truly was. And I'm amazed by the stuff he did. And I feel like an idiot for carrying that torch of this guy sucks, you know?
Yep.
So
There's players like that all across the board in every sport. I mean, even, one of my least favorite athletes is LeBron James. But
I detest him.
I detest him too, but how do you not, like, when he's, even now, but when he's
Yeah.
gone, you're going to look back and say, I mean, look at how old he is now, still playing and doing his thing, so you can't, again, I don't like the guy, but, I respect greatness, I really do. And he's just been phenomenal. And that goes for every sport. You have a handful of guys that have done that.
You know who I didn't like? And I thought about it, and I cannot go back to respecting his game or anything like that. Patrick Ewing.
You didn't like him?
I didn't like him
as a person or as a player?
No, as a player.
Okay.
I don't know him as a person. As a player, I didn't like him. I didn't like his game. When everybody just gushed all over him, I thought it was ridiculous. And here's why. And every time I get soft on it, I think about this. He let John Starks take 500 shots, and instead of being the leader on that team and saying the ball is going to go through me so we can win a championship, he faded back. And I think, to me, as much as I didn't like Starks for being, he was a dirty player, I used to call them carjackers in shorts. John Starks at least tried to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Patrick Ewing said, if I don't make these mistakes, I won't get ripped apart.
Right.
And I think that it was easy for him. So I just never a Patrick Ewing fan. And I saw him live in college against St. John's down in the Landover, and saw some great games. But yeah, I never changed my mind about him. But I like this. I like every week we should try to come up with somebody like this that we hated and now we loved, or we hated and we still hate.
Or we do like a top 10 of something like this where we can actually think about, but then it's funny because you're like, oh, Mike, you're putting you on the spot. When you take 10 seconds, you're like, damn, there's a lot of people I can mention here.
It's true. So this week was also the NFL Combine, which, listen, if you're watching the NFL Combine, you really, you got to find some other things going on. The only thing I want to see is Rich Eisen when he runs the 40.
That is great.
And I'll watch that on YouTube later. I'm not going to watch it live.
No.
Did anything, Mike, come out of the Combine that, I don't know, maybe you, even if it was stories coming out of the Combine, anything hit you this week?
So really, not necessarily in the Combine. I think a lot of the big guys are not participating. They're going to interview. I know Cam Ward is not going to throw. I know Shador is not going to throw. So you're really not going to get a lot from the top guys here. But I think just overall with the way that the draft is going to set up, I think you're going to see a lot of guys come through who are, maybe you didn't think of them right away, but you're always going to see that one person. Like you look at Tom Brady's, 19-second 40-yard dash from 10 years ago. There's going to be somebody in there who you're going to look at who ran and did everything in the Combine, and you're going to be like, well, why didn't anybody pick him? So I don't know who that person's going to be, but Geoff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't take too much stock in the Combine in terms of, for example, how good a player is going to be in the NFL. Obviously there's going to be stories, for instance, Isaiah Bond, the Texas wide receiver, guaranteeing he's going to break the 40-yard dash that Xavier Worthy has. Like, those kind of stories are kind of cool. And I think the Combine needs that so people can actually, pay attention and watch it. But, to me, watching game footage is where you're going to get the most information on a player, right? You're not going to get that on a bench press machine. You're not going to get that on a vertical jump. Like, all these guys are strong and fast, and all the quarterbacks can look good, when there isn't a game on the line, right? So the combine for me is a good scale to judge the fitness level of a player. Do they need to work on certain aspects of their fitness? But in terms of how good they are as a player, you got to be careful with that. But now, with that said, Mike, you mentioned this, and you're right, because what I like to focus on are the interviews, the press conferences, the personality of these players. Will they be a good fit in New York, for example? The coaches look at, are they a good fit for the culture? What's their daily routine? And you couple that with the actual game footage. To me, that's going to tell you more if they're a valuable pick than if they could bench press 400 pounds. And I want to actually read a quote from Cam Ward, which I thought was, for a young man, remarkably impressive. He said, "I'm willing to do anything that it takes to win a football game, whether that's be a gunslinger all day or I have to hand the ball off." That, to me, is more impressive than watching him throw the ball down the field in a combine. That's exactly what you want your quarterback to be, right? I have no problem with the linebacker or defensive end being a little nasty, a little cocky, but you want the quarterback to be the CEO, right? When's the last time a cocky quarterback won a Super Bowl? Never happens. So those are the things that I extract from the combine more than I do the 40-yard dash or, the vertical jump.
Yeah. Well, what's funny was I saw an interview with someone yesterday, and they were talking about guys who killed it at the combine and then were the biggest busts. And one of them was Mike Mamula, who went to the combine, crushed it, and then the Eagles fell in love with him, and he was just absolutely god awful.
Yep.
Geoff, the thing about Cam Ward too is someone mentioned about dropping in the draft to him in an interview, and he says, if I drop down, whoever takes me, I'll be happy with it. He says, but somebody said, well, what if you go to 7 to the Jets and the Jets took you? He said, I would really welcome that opportunity. He says, because I think the Jets have a pretty decent team that I think maybe I could be one of the final pieces. Now, I'm not a big Cam Ward fan, but if I was telling Mike last night, if he drops to 5 and you want to trade with Jacksonville and maybe give up an extra 3 to move up 2 spots, I'm all for that. If that's what they think. But I would never go up to number 1 or number 2 to get either Shador or Cam. I just don't think that they're worthy of that. But that would be and there's a lot of NFL rumblings. I mean, yesterday, was it Matthew Stafford signed with the Rams?
Mhm.
So now the Giants are, looking for people. And I heard last night from Connor Hughes that when they talk about Rodgers and the Giants, he said from everything he's heard, that infatuation is on the Giants side, not the Rodgers side. Because they'll get him killed.
Yeah,
they'll get him killed.
Oh, that offensive line is not. You think the Jets' offensive line was bad? If they put Aaron Rodgers behind that Giant offensive line from last year, he wouldn't last 4 plays.
Yeah.
Without hurting himself.
And they're getting better. Their offensive line's getting better, but Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old.
Well, keep in mind when they have Andrew Thomas in the lineup, if he stays healthy, that's a completely different offensive line.
Yes.
So when he goes out, the whole offensive line crumbles. Like he's a top 3 tackle in the league. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league.
Yep.
So if he stays healthy, their offensive line is okay. But it's interesting because you look at the potential quarterback situation for the Jets and the Giants. It's been so fascinating to watch this because I don't remember a time where the Jets and the Giants were this deep in the quarterback abyss at the same exact time.
Yep.
Right. And they're essentially in the same quarterback pool right now. So initially, I think I said a couple weeks ago, my prediction was they're going to get Russell Wilson because there seemed to be a connection there. I got news for you boys. They're getting Aaron Rodgers. I don't think there's any question about it. Listen, they wanted Stafford, and obviously Stafford used the Giants as leverage, which is fine. I mean, he's well within his right to do that. But that ship has sailed, obviously. And Rodgers evidently reached out to him too, or reached out to them too. And I'm all in. I mean, the guy threw 28 touchdowns last year on a team with no structure, no coach, and a deflated locker room. And in addition, let's just say, for example, he brings Devontae Adams with him, which I think he probably will. Rodgers coupled with Adams and Neighbors for a year. I mean, if you're a Giants fan, how are you not pumped that happened?
Right.
Although I have seen this movie before where you say, oh, if you bring him in with the guys that we have, he's going to do well. And
Yeah,
I've seen this movie before, so you
it
just
doesn't
have to
end
make sure
well.
that the rest of the team structure is there, and you can't let him do what he did in New York, with the Jets, and let him run everything there.
Well, he won't be able to run everything because you can say what you want about Dable as a coach, and I'm still up and down, but Aaron Rodgers had nobody on that football team not wearing a uniform, wearing a headset, that
Mhm.
was able to get in his ear and tell him, listen, this is not your team. This is our team. I think Dable, given all of his criticisms, and believe me, I have plenty, he's not a guy that's going to just let Aaron Rodgers come in and run the show. I think he has more of a militaristic style than people think.
Mhm.
We saw him chew out players multiple times. So I don't think Rodgers will come in here and just treat this like a playground. He will have to adapt to the system. So it'll be interesting, but we'll see what happens.
Geoff, if the Giants finish with or without Rodgers, whoever they
Mhm.
get, if they finish 7-9 and don't make the playoffs, is that the end of the Dable Shane?
Man, I don't like looking at records and saying, okay, this is why you shouldn't come back, because there's so many variables
Yeah.
throughout the year.
How did they play? Were they competitive?
There's so many things to look at, but I think, look, the team, they're in a bad spot because the team wants them to find the quarterback of the future while simultaneously winning at least 9 games. And for a GM and coach, that is an absolute nightmare. Rebuilding and winning at the same time. It's unfortunate, man, because I think Dable is a good coach and he's in a really tough spot. And, hindsight's always 2020, guys. But if you look back, the worst thing that happened to Brian Dable was having a great first year.
Yeah.
Because it was a mirage. He earned it. It wasn't luck. I mean, he earned those wins, and Daniel Jones played well, but it actually ended up setting the franchise back years.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Do I think he'll be back? Just gun to my head, 7 wins? I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I think it has to be a complete disaster. Because what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of another coach
I
and
know.
hire somebody you don't know? If 7 wins isn't good, but, if he has 3 wins, he's gone.
Yeah, that's true.
But 7 wins,
Yeah.
again, depending on what happens in the locker room, too, I would say he's probably back.
Mikey, what are you hearing about in the NFL rumblings and stuff? And what do you have to say what Geoff just said?
I mean, with the division the way it is, where you now have Philadelphia, you now have Washington, you have Dallas, who's always been a pain in the neck for the Giants throughout the years, at least in the regular season. Those 6 games right there are going to be very difficult games to try to win within the division. Those games, especially the 2 against Philly, especially the 2 against Washington now, because now I think Washington is going to be an up-and-coming team going forward. It's going to be tough for them to win more than 7 or 8 games, I think, next year. Even if they have a good quarterback and they fix things and Daboll is able to, channel that magic from a couple of years ago where they make the playoffs in terms of running the locker room and making the team his. I think that's what's going to end up happening is that he's going to have to take over this and let it be his ship to run.
Yeah, and I wouldn't categorize the Giants in any way, shape, or form as like a win-now team, but they do have some talented pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson, who's actually a very good receiver. If we get Rodgers, we can potentially have Adams. I mentioned Andrew Thomas before, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. Not the biggest Thibodeau fan, but he's fine, right? So, and I think their tight end too, Theo Johnson, is going to be a really good player. So they could win with a quarterback that's effective, right? Which I think, for example, like an Aaron Rodgers still is. So, like if the Giants, for example, drafted Abdul Carter, find a way to potentially get Jackson Dart and have him sit behind Rodgers for a year with Adams, that's a good situation for the Giants. I'd rather have that than sign Stafford for 3 years and be locked in, right? With Rodgers, you have 1 year. So if it works out, great. If it doesn't, he's gone. So I think Rodgers would be the right move for the Giants, and I think they're going to get it done.
How about this one, Geoff? So Dable is the quarterback whisperer, supposedly.
Allegedly.
Okay? Allegedly. How about you look at the body of work that Sam Darnold's put in for the whole year And yes, he did have his last 2 games were extremely questionable. If you're Dable, do you say to yourself, you know, I can work with that? And now you would have the long-term solution to your problem.
I couldn't want Sam Darnold any less. And it's not him. It's not his skill set. I always thought Sam Darnold was pretty good, and I thought the Jets ruined him.
Oh,
But
yeah, we did.
we talked about this. I forget. Maybe it was I think last week or the week before about New York. It's a different animal, right? And I'm not saying he's soft, Sam Darnold. I'm not saying he literally can't play in New York, but he got eaten up and chewed out or spit out here, right?
Yeah, he
So
did.
I don't want, and these guys, man, like, people in general, but athletes are so, like, they're so like locked in mentally, and they have certain routines. Bad memories are going to pop up in that stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that. It's not a knock
Okay.
on him, but I don't want him in New York again.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
But
I would love him in Tennessee. I think is a great spot for Sam.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you got a division where it's wide open. No one in that division is going to run away with anything.
Yeah.
You have a team that has been dying for some sort of consistent quarterback play. If you get anything remotely close to what you got last year, there's no reason that team can be playing in the second weekend of the playoffs next year easily without even blinking an eye.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. Sam Darnold. It's not that he's a bad player, and he in that division with Tennessee, he can absolutely win, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And the other thing is, real quick before we move on, with Sam Darnold, I feel like he has to be with the perfect coach, the perfect situation, right? Because he gets way too reckless and he's hard to reel in.
Yeah.
And I just don't know, who has that where he can have success. But yeah, time will tell. We'll see.
All right, as we're well, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Well, let me ask you guys one thing about the combine before we move on to the picks and everything else at the end here.
Mm-hmm.
You had to pick one combine activity that you had to do. Which one are you guys taking? Are you doing the 40-yard dash?
Do or watch?
Do.
Participate.
Oh, okay. Actually do. And how do you think you could do in it? Because I have one, but I'm curious about what you guys have.
Mine would be the 40-yard dash. And the reason being is because there would be less of a chance of me killing myself trying to do the jump, the broad jump, the high jump, the bench pressing. But if you just said to me, okay, there's a lion behind you, run. I'm going to give you everything I have for that, for that 40 yards. And then whatever it is, and I think I would do very badly.
So the slowest time all time at the combine for the 40-yard dash is 6.07 seconds.
6.07. And every split second counts too, right?
Correct.
I could beat that.
2 seconds is a big difference.
I could beat that.
Man, that's a tough one. I don't know. See, I would probably say the broad jump because I actually do those at the boxing gym that I go to. But I'm not saying I would be anywhere remotely close to these guys. I'd embarrass myself. But I would say probably the broad. I'd want to do the 40-yard dash just to see what my number would be. But man, I wouldn't do it on camera. That's for sure. But I would definitely do it. But I mean, we should do this. Probably we should get together and
we should do it. Mike, what would you do first before I come up with a plan?
So I would do the bench press just because that's the easiest one. You don't have to go too crazy with anything in terms of anything out of the ordinary physically wise. You're not doing any sort of sprinting or jumping or anything. You're just lifting weight, which most guys are doing anyway on their hand. I actually had to do this. I lost a fantasy football league a couple of years back and had to do the full combine at one point. And needless to say, my time was not great in terms of the 40. So,
well, I think what we should do, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna have my son-in-law measure out 40 yards, and I'm gonna have him video me run the 40. And then Mike, I think you should try to, if you can, bench, see what you can do. And Geoff, you want to video yourself doing the broad jump.
I like it.
And then we can bring it on and we can show it on the show. 6.07 seconds for the 40.
Correct.
Who did that? Who did the 6:07?
So at Arizona State guard Regis Crawford at the 2004 Combine had the slowest 40 time in Combine history.
Now watch, he's probably a Hall of Famer.
Now the 40. I'm not going to a football field and running that because it'll be much slower in the grass. They do it on AstroTurf, right, or turf. So
Right.
I'll do it on cement. We'll measure it out, and then we'll. I'm going to do it. I'll beat that guy. 6 seconds, 6.07 seconds.
6.07.
I'm beating him. He's going to eat my dust.
I mean, I'll definitely beat him in a 10-yard dash. I could do in probably 6 seconds, but not.
You'd be surprised once you get going, man. You just go.
You just go.
Just picture like something behind you, and just run. You know. So last week we unveiled Geoff's UFC picks. Now, Geoff, without revealing what happened, give us the 3 names again. Do you have that written down?
So it was Song Yadong.
Right.
It was Anthony Hernandez and Rob Font. 1 for 1, baby.
Geoff
1
had
for 1.
all 3. And you know what the best part of that was? He didn't have a nickel on that parlay.
No. I'm not the biggest gambler, but I do like
Right.
small bet parlays. And I just didn't do it. And I looked up the next morning because I watched some of the fights. It was on late.
Yeah.
I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I hit this. And then my buddy Geoff, who wrote into the show, and the reason why I made those picks, texted me the screenshot of his winnings. He's like, thanks a lot. I'm like, I should have did it. I should have did it.
As Groucho Marx said to his brother Chico, he says, well, they were playing cards, and he says, we'll play for small stakes. And his brother said, and some French fries. So
Yes. there is a card tonight, but we're not going to do the picks. It's kind of a weak card. I don't like saying that about fighters because they can whoop my ass for sure. But it's a weak card in comparison to what we usually get. But next week is a massive card.
Well,
it's
you better
huge.
put it together.
So we'll put it together. I'll get some nice picks for you guys, and I'll prepare for it. So we'll get it done.
First of all, I got yelled at last night by Mikey's father, thinking like it's only my show. He yells at me in a FaceTime call because he does not like UFC.
Okay.
Get rid of the UFC. I don't like it. And I'm like, ugh. Well, now let's go to the part of the show that I love, Geoff loves, everybody loves this. The name of this is Mikey's Mushes. And Mikey, don't tell us the results, but what did you give us for last week?
So I had the Hungarian table tennis. The Japanese table tennis player last week playing in the European Masters. He won the first set, to be fair. He did win the first set and then proceeded to lose the next 3 and proceeded to get worse and worse as the game went on. So certainly not an ideal start for those picks.
But then you gave us a bonus pick.
Of course I did. I did.
And what was that?
That was Austin Vanderford to lose at the UFC fight because his wife is Paige. His wife is Paige Van Zandt. So I didn't think he would be training as hard because I certainly wouldn't if that was what I would be leaving the gym to go see. And of course he goes and wins the fight. So 0 for 2 last week. So yeah.
Well, we're hoping that you're going to bounce back today. So without any further ado, Mikey, your mushes.
Okay. So we're not going to go too far off the beaten path this week. We're going to go with hockey, so a sport that a lot of us enjoy. We're going to go over to Sweden. The Linkoping Hockey Club. They are playing the Skellefteå AIK team this afternoon, Saturday afternoon at 12 noon. I'm going to take Linkoping Hockey Club minus 1.5 goals. So I think they're going to do well and beat these guys. That's a plus 240 on that. I think that's, if you're going to bet hockey,
plus
you got to bet the
240 or
goal
plus
lines.
140?
Plus 240.
240. Oh, wow.
Minus 1.5. So they are, if you're going to bet hockey, I think you got to use either the 1.5 or the money line. And as my bonus pick for the week, I'm going to take the Bridgeport Islanders tonight, money line against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms at the PPL Center in Allentown on Saturday night. Plus 125 money line. They got beat last night, the Islanders, 5-2.
Ooh.
So I think they're in back-to-back nights. They're playing the Phantoms. So I think the Islanders come back tonight and win this game.
Will you be wearing that jersey?
Of course, I'm going to be wearing that jersey tonight.
All right, representing.
It is also Eagles championship night there as well. So they're going to have Jahan Dotson there signing autographs in between periods, which would be kind of cool.
A real integral part of that championship.
If you bet him first touchdown, you certainly did.
Yeah, all right. That's true. You got me. Well, that pretty much wraps up what we were going to talk about. Keep those emails coming in. We enjoy seeing them. We enjoy the comments, even when people tell us they don't like certain parts of the show, as John told us yesterday.
Yeah, but before you continue, is there a reason why he doesn't like the UFC? Something specific that he didn't like?
Well,
I don't know.
First he called it wrestling, so that is
Oh, yeah,
right
he
there
did.
off the
He
bat.
did. He
I'm
I was
sorry,
like,
man.
no,
That's...
it's not wrestling. It's UFC.
He did. You're
fighting.
right. I forgot about that.
So basically, the credibility has been stripped.
Correct.
Pretty much
exactly.
is what you're saying.
Now wait. The other thing was, if he lives down in Florida in Margaritaville, right? So
Nice.
he might have had a few margaritas in him when he called us to tell us about the wrestling.
Correct.
That's
So,
great.
Who knows? But John, if you're listening, we're going to still do the UFC, but hopefully we're doing a lot of other stuff. Watch the UFC next week. Don't watch it tonight. Watch it next week. And truthfully, the show's not going to be up Saturday. It'll probably be up like Monday, so you will have missed already. But watch it next Saturday and then come back to us and you tell us what you think.
And John, I'll tell you what else. Take my picks, my parlay I'm going to give you next week, win a few bucks, and you could FaceTime me personally and tell me how much you love the UFC now. So
I also want to say we do not condone gambling.
Very true.
We're doing this, as I said
Gamble
last
responsibly.
week.
Responsibly. If you're going to do it.
Cheddar goldfish. Cheddar goldfish. That's what I'm looking to build a giant bag of cheddar goldfish. So, guys, this was a lot of fun. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of the week. And we will connect later on.